on when you're planning to take your test, right? So from last week, or maybe I moved it up to this week, you should have one of these options with the little icons. There should be two little emojis, whichever one you are scheduled to do. So if you're testing, with paper, that's on the 5th next week. And that's in the little gym in person. So you should be making arrangements to be here by 7:30 in the morning, those people that I just named. Now, everybody else is doing digital testing. So if you're doing digital testing, then you have one or the other of these. Actually, I think, Melissa, you're the only one who's doing digital at school on that day. Everybody else is doing digital at home. So if you're doing digital at home, that means all these people right here, you should have downloaded already the application. And I know that as of Friday, you haven't, but it's a really tricky thing. There's all kinds of information here for you to download. One of the students even made a video like showing you how to do it. It's kind of simple, but you want to make sure that you have it on the computer that you're going to be testing on, because then you're going to have to use it. But you also have to practice in the meantime. So you have to download it, and between now and the 18th, which is the digital testing day for this exam, you should be practicing that you know how to log on, that you know how to, like use the controls, how to move from question to question, and so on. So when you download that and you open it on your computer, it will automatically have in there all the tests that you're taking. Maybe there's just this one, or maybe there's another one, and then you can practice each one so that you can see how they're laid out, and you could see, like what you're going to need to do. If you wait until test day to do that, you're not going to have any opportunity to like have some confusion. So I would say in the next couple of days, if you are testing digital, that you should be practicing. Even Melissa, even though you're testing at school, you might want, I don't think you can download it and practice it. Well, you could, and then just bring your device with you. Yeah, download it and then to a Chromebook or to, like your regular laptop, whatever computer you're going to use for the test. So if you have questions about that, like if you're trying to download it and it's not working, shoot me an email because I can get you some help on that. We can get you some IT help, but don't wait. Miss Sid is having a cow every single day when she looks at the list and she's like, oh, why haven't they downloaded it? And I'm like, it's not until the 18th. I know, but she plans ahead. So these three down here are just reminders about your testing situation. You'll only have one of these though, because I only sent it to the people that it applied to. So, oh, okay, Alexa, I'm gonna record it so you can watch it later. All right, so all that's there. If something comes up, let me know. All right, let's look at this week's instructions, a few reminders. This is an A week. Yeah, if you came to East on Friday and they downloaded it for you, you should be good to go, but you're going to want to open it there at home, and it will give you like a little test scenario. It will give you like a little practice, and you can practice with all the different tests because each test is set up differently with different requirements. It's not a whole test, but it's just like, from what I understand, it's like a practice so that you know how to navigate the screens and all, like, you don't want to be trying to figure that out on test day. So yeah, if they downloaded it for you on Friday, then you're good to go, except open it and practice. That's the only other thing. Good questions. So this is an A week. That means that you've got a formative today, Wednesday, and Friday. What I decided to do this week was do kind of like a modified question 3 formative for each of the 3 days. So if you haven't already been to the formative for today, I'll just tell you, today, Wednesday, and Friday, it's set up so that I'm going to give you a different question 3, that open question where you can use your chart to help you figure out which piece of literature you want to respond to, just like the practice one that we did last week. But it's just a mini one. So all you have to do is look at the prompt, decide what work of literature that you want to use. Well, let me just go to the formative and I'll show you if it loads. So it looks like this for you guys. So this is the one for today, but it's going to be just like this for Wednesday and Friday also, but with a different topic. So I want you to imagine that you're taking the AP exam and free response question 3 comes up, and there's going to be a different one right here in italics each day this week so that you can kind of practice that question 3 without having to write 3 essays. So today's says choose a novel or play of literary merit in which the most significant events are mental or psychological. For example, awakenings, discoveries, changes in consciousness. Then describe how the author uses techniques to give these internal events the same sense of excitement. So then you're going to go to yourself. The thing is asking you to choose which work. So maybe you want to use the Metamorphosis, or maybe you would want to use, some other piece that you've read of literary merit. You could probably also use Othello, right? Because there's the psychology of Othello changing from, love to hate in a way. So, you could choose whichever work, state the work that you would use, and then just write a thesis statement. You're not writing the whole essay, just what would be your thesis statement if you were responding to that. Because if you have good thesis statements, then the essay, you can just sort of like develop what you already put in your thesis, right? So there's just going to be a different one each day this week for you to practice that. And you can use your chart. Hopefully that makes sense to you. What else? Reminder about AP study resources. Oh yeah, I wanted to remind you that I did make a section down here of AP study resources. So there are some things that can help you if you want to spend a little more time preparing for the exam. Some of you are sort of hit and miss with the sophistication point. Some of you are like always at a 4.5 and that sophistication point has been elusive. There's a really good PowerPoint right here that you can go through that will explain the sophistication point to you a little bit and how you can get it. Then this is a free practice test that you can do. The cool thing about this one, I mean, obviously I'm giving you practices to do for class, but if you wanted to practice even more and get explanations, this one, you do the practice test, and then here, I'll show you. It's on this website, Marco Learning. So the English literature test is here. You can do the practice test, and then when you're done, this document explains the answer to every single question. So it's sort of like an entire test with all the explanations about why that was the correct answer. So just depending on how much time you have, these are like not for a grade, these are just to help you prepare. Here's a study guide from that same website. And then here are the videos that they have been doing live at 5 o'clock in the evening about English literature exam, and different teachers come on and do these different topics. So they do them live. This is the one that's scheduled for tonight, but you can go back and watch the ones that they already did, right? So you can go back and you can pick or choose whichever topic. They're kind of standalones. It's not like episodic where you have to watch this one and then you have to watch this. Is not like Netflix, right? So down here, this is the one for tonight if you want to watch it live, which means you can put questions and stuff like that to the whoever's teaching it, or you can go back and watch, like maybe these two you're okay with, but this one is a really interesting topic. They're under an hour. They're usually about 35, 45 minutes. And so there's those. I put a calendar here. I made a little calendar so that you could see what they're going to be discussing, and then you could just click and go right to it. Next week, they're going to do, or this week, they're going to do multiple choice strategies, approaching question 3. Now, we've been working with question 3. I'm going to talk about our practice from last week today, but maybe you want to hear a different teacher talk about it. I have my own way of doing it, and sometimes, hearing another teacher talk about that same topic can really solidify it for you, right? So that's always good to do. And then these are all the topics that they'll be doing. You can already go back and see these, and these are the ones for this week. So I think this is especially good if you're not testing until the digital test on the 18th, because you have time. The people next week, the time is growing near. But that's okay. We've been practicing. I'm very confident. I feel good about the Q3 that we did last week. I think most people did pretty well on it, given it was the first time that we did it. And I don't have a lot for you this week. We finished with Othello. You should have turned in your theme chart and your concept tracker. So I'll have a look at those this week. That's like our wrap up for Othello. So all we're gonna do between now and the test is just do a few little practices, keep our skills sharp, keep working on that timing. That's it. I'm not gonna add anything else to our list. Okay. Magali, that's weird. I'll double check that when I get off. Does the other one show up or something? Is it the wrong one?
I don't see any of them.
Oh, okay, hold on. Boop, boop, I can fix it. Oh, there we go. Good thing you mentioned it because I just didn't check off the box. Refresh it, should be there. Everybody else can see theirs, right? Let me know if you can't, because it could just be that I made a mistake because I'm exhausted. I know I try to come on here and try to be, you know, uplifting and all that stuff because I think that's important, but sometimes I forget stuff or stuff slips by me. Hopefully it's there now. Okay, so today I wanted to go over the timed essays from last week, the question 3 that you had about sacrifice that we did on Wednesday. I'm not going to have us do another timed essay between now and the test. I think that if we do those formatives to keep ourselves sharp and kind of like stretch the different ideas from past tests, then I think that we'll be fine. What I did make a new multiple choice practice though. So multiple choice practice 3 is the one that's due before class on Wednesday. I do want to have a short class Wednesday to talk about the multiple choice practice 3, which is the one with 4 passages. So that one we're going to go over together on Wednesday. And practice 4 is the one that you need to have ready for next Monday. And then Monday in class, we will go over, that one is a complete full length practice. So there'll be 5 passages, 49 questions, and you'll have 1 hour. So we've been kind of building. We started with 1 poem, 1 prose, then we went to 2 poems and 2 prose, and then this week you have 1 hour to do 5 passages. It's on AP Classroom. So I'll put a link on here to AP Classroom, but I think you all know where it is. So that is the only thing that I have on here, except it's going to be up to you this week if you want to revise question 3 practice. I should have already returned that to you. I graded them and sent them back, I think this morning. So if you did the Q3, the one about sacrifice, we're going to look at it in a minute. I'm going to talk about some things that you could do. You can either leave the grade as it is, or you can work on revising it. I think if you have less than a 5, you should revise or think about revising. It's going to be your call. But if you have less than a 5, then there's some things that you could do to practice so that when you do your Q3 on the exam, maybe you can put some of those things into play. So that one is optional. The only thing you have to do this week is multiple choice practice 4. That's it. I'm not going to add to your workload, but I do want us to practice a full, what that's like for the full multiple choice. So let's talk about the Q3s. If you can, open up your essay that you wrote about sacrifice. This is what the prompt looked like last Wednesday. It was our first Q3, and I think that that's a little different because you have so many options open to you when you're writing the Q3. So it's worth talking about, and like I said, with the formatives, we'll be practicing that one a little bit. So last week's question was this: it has often been said that what we value can be determined only by what we sacrifice. All right, so I usually read that and I stop for a second. I just think about that concept just for a couple seconds. What we value can be determined by what we sacrifice. And so like I kind of apply it to my life for a minute and I go, oh, that's kind of true. I don't sacrifice for things that don't matter to me. So, okay, I get it. Consider how this statement applies to a character. So we're only writing about one. from a novel, play, or epic poem of literary merit. Now, I'm going to say almost everybody wrote about Othello. I read some really good papers on Emilia. I read some really good papers on Othello. I wrote some good papers. I read some good papers on Desdemona. Desdemona, I think, is a tougher one to do because I don't know if she ever really, well, she knows Othello is going to kill her, but I don't think she understands why. So it's hard to get to the morality there. But you have to pick a character who sacrificed, surrendered, or forfeited something that highlights their values. So it's not just they sacrificed something. It has to be that they sacrificed something and that revealed what they believe in or what's important to them or their values and their morals. So I have to eliminate books where there's a sacrifice, but I can't connect it to a moral characterization. All right. Some people wrote about, besides Othello, the other one that I read was from To Kill a Mockingbird. People wrote about Atticus Finch, who sacrificed the safety of himself and his family in order to defend, his client, who is a Black man who's been unjustly accused of raping a white woman, and how he did that in order to teach his children a lesson. So you can pretty easily get the moral reason why Atticus does that. Why does he put his family in jeopardy and himself to go against the norms of society in his time? Because he wants to teach his children a lesson about, doing the right thing and fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. So in this question, in almost all question threes, they want you to connect the work and the situation, like in this case, it's a sacrifice, to something else. And so you've got like a multi-step job to do. It's not just about somebody who sacrifices. I have to be able to see their morality through that sacrifice. So that one is a little bit tricky, right? But most of them that I read were good choices. So then you have to write an essay in which you analyze how the particular sacrifice illuminates the character's values and provides a deeper understanding of the work as a whole. So then I need to connect it to the work. Whenever you see this, the meaning of the work as a whole, what they mean is a theme. So that means that there's some overarching idea in that piece of literature that is connected to the morals and the sacrifice of the character. I can easily do that with To Kill a Mockingbird and Atticus Finch, because it's really clear that the whole message is we should all, he's not just demonstrating that for Jem and Scout, he's demonstrating that we should help people who can't help themselves, to all of us. Like that's a lesson when you read the book, you go, oh, wow, that was a big sacrifice that he did because he was really in danger, especially when he sits out that one night when he hears that they're going to go to the jail. And I think his name is Tom, right? The man that he's defending. So I have to then make a third step, and that is connect it to the meaning of the work as a whole, and that's a theme. You can do that in the conclusion, but it's better if you do that throughout the paper. So let's talk about what I saw in the essays from last week. On average, I think they were scored about a 4. There were some that were a little bit higher than that. There were some that were a little lower than that, but the majority of them were scored a 4. A 4 is a passing score on an essay. So because you have 3 of them, keep in mind that your goal might be a 6, but the number of 6s that happen is minuscule. I sat the last 2 years grading these essays for this exam, and I will tell you, I ran across maybe each year out of over 1,000 papers that I read, I read about 1,500 papers in a week. And I think I ran across maybe 20 6s. So I don't want you to feel bad if you're consistently at a 4 or a 5. A 6 is like, lightning struck and the clouds opened and the angels sang and, just all the circumstances lined up. And that can happen. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I don't want you to feel bad if you're making a 4, because a 4 is passing. And a 4 on the essays straight across, and then a 60% on the multiple choice, you will pass the AP exam. So you can kind of already gauge where you tend to be with your scores and say, I'm in good shape, or I'm within range of passing the AP exam. So I want to talk about what I saw. I made some notes. Hold on. Get my notebook here. So maybe jot a few of these things down, especially if you intend to revise this essay. If you want to revise this one, you certainly can, and I will change your grade if your score improves. So if you go from a 3 to a 4, or a 4 to a 5, or a 5 to a 6, then I'm just going to change the grade to that. So a 6 is 100, a 5 is a 90, a 4 is an 80. You get how that goes. All right, so here are some things to look at in your paper if you're revising and practicing for next week. Number one, look at your paper for how much summary is in it. It's important that you remember that whoever's reading your paper has already read the book. They don't ever have anybody at the grading read a paper where they haven't read the book. So if I'm at the scoring and I'm reading for question 3 and some student writes about a book that I haven't read, I'm not qualified to score that, and I have to pass it to somebody else who has. So, but everybody there is an English professor or an English teacher. So most of us have read the majority of the works that students will write about. So you don't have to summarize much in your text. So like if you get the essay out again and you're like, oh, I want to work on it, think about looking for your paper objectively for where you have summary. Some people wrote like a whole big chunky paragraph just summarizing Othello, or just summarizing To Kill a Mockingbird, or whatever text they used. You don't need to do that at all. So imagine that you're talking to somebody who teaches that book. Like, you don't have to summarize Othello to me. You know I've read it. So you can use little summary points to kind of point to certain places, like when Othello is getting ready to kill Desdemona. Like, that's not a summary. Then you make your point. So if the majority of your paper is summary, ask yourself, if I take that out, what am I going to put in its place? How can I replace that with more analysis that goes with my thesis? How can I give a specific event from the work? That's the second thing that I put in my notes. Look through your paper. How many specific events do you have? Like when you're pointing to an actual thing that happened in Act 2, or like in the middle of the novel, or what have you. Like, are you talking about when when Scout sees what's that neighbor guy, the recluse guy, Boo, yeah. Boo Radley, yeah. When she sees him and he comes out and saves her by that tree, when they're being chased, she doesn't understand what's happening, but what we understand is that the townspeople are kind of trying to get back at Atticus for what he's doing in the trial. So when Boo Radley comes and saves her, that's a specific thing that happened. So if I can talk about that specific situation and then relate it back to my thesis, and then like whatever topic it is that I'm writing about, that's better than summary. So look and see in your paper, step 1, if you're revising, is to figure out where can I take out summary and put in some specific situation and really deal with that. Where do I really see the sacrifice of Atticus? Where do I really see the sacrifice of Emilia or Othello? What scene is it where that happens? So the more specific you can be, the better. That's why I wanted you to do the chart, because what if the work that you're thinking of using is something that you read when you were a freshman? You're trying to think all the way back to that work, like maybe Romeo and Juliet, or I don't know, did you guys read Julius Caesar in English too, or what have you, Fahrenheit 451. So if you don't have like a fresh memory of the characters' names and what happens, then you can't really be specific. And so the essay is not going to be very successful. So those are the first 2 things I wrote down. The third and final thing that I wrote down that I saw that you could work on if you're revising is thesis statements. A lot of people wrote thesis statements that basically said, in To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch sacrifices much for his values, but then they never said what those values were in the thesis. I could kind of figure out what they were in the paper, but you need to come right out with it in the thesis. So if you don't know right away, you can always write the paper, and when you figure out that his values or his morals have to do with defending the weak or defending, sort of injustices, then go back and change that his values and add in of defending, you know, defending injustice, or like, attacking injustice, I guess it would be. So your thesis could be more specific. Go back and look at the thesis that you did last week. How specific is it? Were you just talking about values in general, or did you name what those values were? If you go back, you probably can think about those values and name them, because that's what they want you to do in this essay. And that will be a way to improve the paper. So those are 3 things that you can do, plus whatever notes I made in your paper that can help you revise, if that makes sense. Any questions on that? Those are my 3 tips. Last thing I want to do today is go over the question 3 rubric, which is here. It looks just like the other ones that I've given you. Whoa. Hold on, Charlie. Okay. So here is the scoring criteria. Basically, it's the same for all 3 essays. Does the essay give a thesis that answers the prompt and something that you could defend? And if the answer is yes, then that's that point. Most people get the thesis point if they're answering the question. Where you can gain your most points is in the evidence and commentary. That's why I'm saying avoid summary, because if it's summary, you can't really get out of a 1-point scenario, right? See how this says summarizes? If it's mainly a summary, I can't give more than 1 point for that. If the summary grows, like say you move from a summary into some explanation, then it's possible it could move to 2 points, because the 2-point explains how some of the evidence relates to the argument. Argument is just another way of saying your thesis or your point. So if it's all summary, it can't get more than 1 point. If it's some summary and some explanation, then I can give it 2 points. If it's pretty much no summary or very little summary and directly gives evidence, those specific instances that I was talking about, those scenes, that specific moment in the text, then I can move to a 3. So do you see, the more specific it gets, the more points you're getting in this essay, right? So that's why I want you to avoid summary, because you don't need to do it. And really, it's just a way of avoiding answering the question. And then the sophistication point. Now that is sort of like the star on top of the Christmas tree, but you can read here about what you can do. The people in class who are making 5s and 6s because they're getting the sophistication point are mainly getting it because they're making a complex thesis. So I read one where it said that Emilia sacrifices to demonstrate her morality because she goes against her husband in order to prove that he's the one ultimately responsible for Othello's downfall and Desdemona's death, sort of indirectly, but also that her behavior proves that Iago's ideas about women being faulty and less than are wrong, because she's morally superior to him. So do you see how that person set themselves up to do 2 jobs in the paper? And that's what we call complexity. So it's okay if you don't think to do that. It's just, that's how you can get the sophistication point. That's one of the ways. So, or you can look at that PowerPoint that I put on the extra resources about how to do that. But people in your class are doing that. So I think that's good. I feel very confident about the test. I know this year's different and different people are testing on different days in different ways, but I feel like skill-wise, we're there, just like any other year. I don't feel like this year you guys have any less ability to do the test than other years. It's just circumstances are a little bit more challenging. But in terms of ability, I think you guys are there. So I'm not worried at all about that. All I'm worried about is if that digital thing works, and that's not in my control, but I know that you've got the ability to do well on the test. So that's pretty much it for today. I don't want to drag it out because I do want to meet with you probably for a half an hour or so on Wednesday so that we can go over multiple choice practice 3. So if you have not done that yet, I think when I checked, there were only a few people who had done that on AP Classroom. Multiple choice practice number 3, we're going to go over the multiple choice questions together on Wednesday so that you can kind of see, like what would be some, what were the correct answers, and also what were some pitfalls and things that we could avoid when we're doing the multiple choice on the exam. All right, questions on this week? Anybody? No? Okay, well, that's it then. I will see you on Wednesday for a short class. Make sure that by the time you come to class on Wednesday, you have completed that AP Classroom multiple choice practice number 3 so that we can discuss it. All right. All right, I'm going to sign off then. If you have a question, you can stay behind. Otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday, same time, same station. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Miss. Have a good day.
Bye.